Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaskar. I am Dr. Susmitha P. Mallaya, Professor, Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. So today I'm going to introduce you another socio-economic legislation which is very important from both perspective, how it has become a social evil and why there is a need that in this, also similar to the Dowry Prohibition Act, which we have discussed in the last class, this legislation also is a very important legislation where you can see that it is a social evil. And what is that? It is the rehabilitation of victims of immoral trafficking under legislation in India. So it is actually the term that is the victims of immoral trafficking. Immoral trafficking has become a very universal crime. It is not only in India. So what you should understand, what is immoral trafficking signifies. So the immoral trafficking signifies the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by means of threat, force, coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, or abuse of power. Got it? For what? For the purpose of exploitation. So, trafficking, it signifies moving from one place to another. Whatever may be the purpose. It may be for legal purposes. Trafficking, you are moving one person from one place to other place. It can be goods as well. So, trafficking. But here, immoral trafficking signifies, as the definition says, it is a recruitment, it is a transportation, it is a transfer, it is a harboring or receipt. Of whom? Of persons. So here it is the persons, it is not the commodity, it is the persons. How they are taken? It is by threat, it is by coercion, that is use of force, abduction, you are abducting a person, fraud, deception, and can be the abuse of power. For what purpose you are taking? For exploitation. You are not transporting them for any good reason, but for the bad reason. And that is what the immoral trafficking has been defined. Now, remember that this immoral trafficking is not only a concern for India, but it is a universal concern. It is happening all over the world. And in the Indian context, in the India, it serves as a source, transit, and destination country for human trafficking. Imagine, we are the country who are recruiting, not for the job employment, but for human trafficking. India is considered as a source to transit and destination country for human trafficking with both internal cross-border dimensions. It's very, very important. See, cross-border. It is not that human trafficking is happening inside, from one state to another state. It is cross-border. People are taken away from here in the name of employment. And they are taken to the outside India or the cross-borderly, and they're harassed, exploited. And most of the victims are the women and children, and they're disproportionately affected. So who are the affected persons here? It is the women and the children majorly. So, in the Indian context, it has become a source for transit. It has become a source of destination, country for human trafficking. So, it's not that, so this is what the menace is. This is what the social evil of human trafficking signifies, or which has become immoral. Now, what are the forms of exploitation? So, since I meant it is an exploitation, exploitation in the form of sexual exploitation. It is not primarily with the sexual exploitation, but also forced labor. So don't think that immoral trafficking signifies only for the sexual exploitation. It is for the forced labor. The persons are do forcefully labor without getting any kind of payment. The recruitment takes place. They will say that it is to take care, but for the domestic help. But there you are not paid. You are harassed. There is no rest for you. You are made to work day and night, even without food. So they forced labor, a kind of slavery and domestic servitude. Forced marriage. Sometimes, you are forced marry. You are also made to marry forcefully. And organ removal. Organ transplantation is one of becoming a business. So those people who are in need, they are exploiting in such a way that it is not only the sexual exploitation. However, it has changed a form of the organ removal as well. Now, why this type of immoral trafficking is taken place, or what is the cause, or what is the vulnerability factors that cause the human trafficking, or we can say that the immoral trafficking? One is the poverty. When the people are poor, when they don't have the food to eat, and they need to live a decent life, they search for the employment. And their poverty is the means which is getting exploited by offering them a lucrative job outside the India, or maybe from one state to another. And then they are exported, they are taken, and after reaching there, they are not given any food, or they are either exploited, they are made to forcefully do the work, domestic work, or any kind of work that matter, and sometimes their organ may also get removed. So one is the poverty. Another is the lack of education. So because the lack of education means they are not that much able to, they may not be reading what is happening inside or not, or inside the country, or forget about the outside country. So the lack of education. Second is the social discrimination. They are always social discrimination. Then the gender inequality. So these are all the factors, vulnerable factors, which result for the immoral trafficking. So immoral trafficking is a socio-economic offense. You need to understand it. And it consists of the transfer or the transportation or the harboring of the persons by means of threat, force, abduction. And the reasons or the factors that make this immoral trafficking includes the poverty, lack of education, social discrimination, gender inequality, then the armed conflict. Sometimes when the armed conflict takes place, people becomes disoriented. Lot of unemployment, nothing will be. So whenever the armed conflict happens, and when the people go through the economic pressures, then that also become a platform for the people to move out of that place where they are living, and that becomes an opportunity for the immoral trafficking to take place. Then the natural disasters, because of the flood and in the pandemic also. We can see that it has resulted with the pandemic, when we have gone through, it has resulted in severe job loss. So it is as per the statistics that is available in the newspapers and all. You can see the data says that unemployment has increased. Lot of issues the people has faced. So natural disasters, demand for the commercial sex. So this is also one of the aspects, that is the commercial sex. So what is immoral trafficking? This definition says that the recruitment, or we can say that the transportation of the persons. Okay. And now let us move with the next aspect of it. We have a legislation. So we understood the term of immoral trafficking. Now, why it is a social evil? Because people are exported in the name of job, and they are and they are not in a position to live a dignified life, and so it has become a social evil, that the law was made in 1956 in the name of Immoral Traffic Prevention Act of 1956. So this is the legislation. This is a legislation that has been enacted in India based on the international agreements, because this immoral trafficking is not only related to India, our country alone. It is an international issue. It's a cross border. It is not that the people are exported only. People are exported, right, from India to outside. So that is why there is a need. So what is the origin? The origin and the purpose, if you see that, the suppression, earlier it was the act was named as the suppression successor, that is the suppression of immoral traffic in women and girls act, that is known as SITA, in 1956. And that means it was projecting only to the women and girls. It was said that the women are exported, girls are exported, and they are exported and exploited. That is what they used to think. And based on that, in 1956, SITA was enacted. But in 1986, it was renamed. It was renamed and suppress immoral traffic and provide protection to the victims. So now the term used is victims. So what is the term used? It is victims. And this is where you should understand it is a gender neutral. This is not only limited to the women alone. This is not limited only to the girls alone. It will include the men as well, because this is a general neutral legislation. So Immoral Traffic Prevention Act of 1956. It is a general neutral legislation, we may say, the reason being that it is for the protection of the victims. Men can also be exported. It's not only women, men can also be exported. So the focus of this legislation is to prevent the commercial prostitution. So here we have to discuss this. Here, the terminology used, the focus of this legislation is that aims to protect, that is, it says about the aims to protect, it aims to protect commercial prostitution. So, it aims to prevent the commercial prostitution with emphasis on prohibiting organized prostitution and exploitation and not criminalizing individuals engaged in prostitution per se. So the terminology used in this legislation is the commercial prostitution. So I'm just underlining that, commercial prostitution. So transportation for the sexual exploitation. But when the legislation of Immoral Traffic Prevention Act was drafted, it has focused to prevent the commercial prostitution with emphasis on prohibiting organized prostitution and exploitation and not criminalizing individuals engaged in prostitution per se. Now, what are the key provisions under the Act of 1956? It deals with the offences relating to the brothels, procuring, living on earnings of prostitution, detention in brothels, and establishment of protective home. So these are the key provisions that is enacted or that is made as part of the prevention of Immoral Prevention Act. What are they? Brothels, procuring, living on earnings of prostitution. So they are not, prostitution per se is not an offense. That is what is important. If prostitution happens, it's not an offense. When you are living, when you are earning, that is the commercialization. When the prostitution becomes commercialized, that means you are earning through the prostitution, then it is an offense. And detention in brothels, you are detaining in the brothel, and establishment of the protective homes. So these are all the important provisions that are part of the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act of 1956. And what are the limitations of this legislation? The limitations are focusing on sites of prostitution and individuals act rather than comprehensive anti-trafficking approaches. So here this legislation majorly focus on the commercial prostitution than the comprehensive anti-trafficking approaches. We need to look beyond the commercial prostitution. However, this legislation, that is the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act, majorly focus on the commercial prostitution. Now, moving further, let us discuss the definitions under the ITPA, that is Immoral Traffic Prohibition, that is the Prevention Act. First is Section 2F. it defines what do you mean by the prostitution. So the prostitution is defined as the act of a female offering her body for promiscuous sexual intercourse for hire, whether in money or in kind. So here the term used is, it can be of, it need not be money alone, it can be of any kind. It can be a property as well. That means, so it is, this act is defining the prostitution of the females. So here, this is the criticism. There is a criticism with respect to the definition of the female, because the prostitution, it is only the female offering her body. That is what the act legislation has focused on. But we know that after the liberalized, we are more liberal now. Liberalization, in every way we are going towards the liberalization policies. So here the criticism that has been made by the persons who are researching on this is that the gender specific only females and focuses on the act rather than exploitation contest, then it is the judiciary that comes into picture and broadens the definition from time to time. So judiciary is trying to make this act a general neutral by not only focusing on the female, that is the prostitution, but apart from beyond that also judiciary is playing a role. So that is what the criticism, because they need to pay, that is the interpretation is taken place from the court of law. So that is one of the aspect, that is the term prostitution has been defined with only respect to the female, and there was no doubt that prostitution is always seen from the women's point of view. So that is why the legislation at the drafting time also have given major focus with respect to the female body alone. Now the concept, that is another concept that has been defined under section 2A is the brothel. What is a brothel? So brothel has been defined as any house, room, part of a house or room or place occupied or used by any person for the purpose of prostitution, for the gain of another person, or for the mutual gain of two or more prostitutes. So the act is penalizing. The brothel has been defined as any room, a house, it can be any part of the house or any part of a small portion, but the place occupied, the place need to be occupied. Okay, the place need to be occupied or used by any person for the purpose of prostitution. So that means there is a need for using that space for the purpose of the commercial gain through the prostitution, and that should be the mutual gain. So that means both of them should agree. It's a kind of consent is there. It is not somebody is doing it forcefully. So here the women are also giving their consent in another way. So we can say that it is a mutual gain of two or more prostitutes. So then only the place will become a brothel. Otherwise it is not. So the significance is that the act criminalizes the perpetrators. That means those who are betting it, perpetrators, that is the traffickers, brothel keepers, pimps, rather than the prostitutes herself. So it is not only the prostitute who is offering her body, but unless she solicits in public, that means soliciting in the public, that is what section 8 signifies, or is a minor. Minor is excluded from this because a minor does not know what is legal, illegal, or what is going through. So here, that is why the legislation is focusing on the definition of the prostitution, and the brothel is the house or the room or part which is used for it, has been defined under the act. Now the next is the prevention and the rehabilitation. So we have discussed the two important definitions under the act. Apart from the other, we will be discussing in the later stage. So what do you mean by the prevention and rehabilitation? We need to prevent such acts. We need to rehabilitate. So this is a very peculiar feature of this legislation. It consists of the prevention as well as the rehabilitation. That is why the term is the victims, rehabilitation of the victims under the legislation. So this is a very peculiar feature of this act where both the prevention and rehabilitation is also there. So even if it is penalizing, you can see that they are trying to rehabilitate the victims. So the preventing aspect is by punishing for running the brothel. So it is not that the prostitution took take place. Before that also, if anybody is running a brothel, then he or she is punished. Punishment for running a brothel. Then penalties for procuring and seduction. Sanctions for detaining persons in brothel. Prohibition on living off earnings on prostitution. Closure of brothels and removal procedures. So it is not that they are waiting for the act to happen. Brothel is a house or a place. So they can close down that. They can remove it. They can give a notice, they can remove it. If they come to know that it is running, the brothel is used and the prostitution is running. It's not that act be committed there. So before that, that's what the preventive measure. So it is a preventive aspect. Now, what is the rehabilitative aspect of this? The rehabilitative aspect is rescue and custody provision. So those persons, sometimes, the minor or those women who are exported for this purpose, they may not be aware. They may not be aware what is happening to them. As I told you in the beginning, the definition says that it can be of any kind, not only money. So maybe she might be offered that you will be given this. Food also can be a reason, and she may not be knowing what is happening to her, or whether she is a prostitute or she has been used for it. Exploitation, she is exploited. She may not be aware of it. So she can be rescued. Rescue and the custody provision. She can be rescued and the custody can be made. Custody of her, and for that, for the rehabilitation purpose. Then there is a provision for the protective homes. So the establishment of the protective homes. Then training and rehabilitation programs. So a lot of training programs, because it's actually a sensitization. It's a sensitive issue. So there is a need for sensitizing. Training is required for those persons who are dealing with them. So all these are the rehabilitative aspect that has been made part of these provisions, various provisions under the Act. Then discharge and repatriation procedures. Then reintegration support mechanism. So those prostitutes who were exploited need to be reinforced or need to give a reputed place in the society or reintegrating with the support system mechanism. So this is provided under the legislation. What is the challenge? The challenging is balancing prevention, rehabilitation effectively. So both of this need to be balanced view. However, it is very easy to say, it is very easy to discuss, but in order to practice, it is very difficult because it's a kind of organized crime. We must say that one of the aspects is organized crime. It's not that one individual is involved or two individuals are involved. It's a kind of organized crime where more than 1, 2, 3 persons are, and sometimes it may be at the international level as well, because it's a cross border. So though the legislation has focused by defining the prostitution and by the preventive mechanism, it is not that it is limited only to the India. The women may be imported, exported, vice versa. So here, the balancing the prevention and the rehabilitation effectively as a punitive measure often overshadow the victim-centric approach as in practice. So in practice, what happens? Those who are victims of this type of crime, socio-economic crimes, it becomes very difficult because it is overshadowing what they need. The legislation has been drafted nicely, but when it comes to the reality practice, it is a challenging aspect to see that all these are met. The rehabilitative homes or established protective homes are actually protecting them. We don't know whether the established protective homes itself is becoming a venue where they're exploited. So that is where it's challenging. So the dual mandate, dual mandate is provided, the legislation is fine, but it is implementation. So initial steps, what are the initial steps that are taken? One is the rescue operation. How they are rescued? The rescue operations takes place with the concept under section 30, that is the appointment of the special police officers. So we know that when any kind of normal crime happens, say for example theft, murder, right, or cheating happens, we approach the police station and the police takes place. However, in this, the state government appoints a special police officer, because in this type of crimes, what you need is the sensitivity. We need to have a sensitivity towards, because they are actually victims. Nobody is born to become a prostitute. Nobody wants, because it's there. We have seen what are the circumstances that they are forced to, and how they are abducted, how they are brainwashed. So we need sensitivity towards them. They are not criminals and they are not accused. They are victims. So here the state governments appoint the special protection police officer, not below the inspector rank, with assistance from the non-official advisory bodies, including the social workers. So here the social workers play a very pivotal role. So with their assistance, the non-official advisory bodies, with their guidance, a special police officer is appointed as part of the rescue operation in the initial stage. Then it consists, section 14 deals with the powers of arrest. So what are the powers of the special police officer? Section 14 says that special police officers can arrest without warrant any person committing a cognizable offense under the Act. So it says that any person, that is, he can arrest without warrant any person. There is no need for getting a warrant for arresting the offense that is committed. That is what we have seen, the running of the brothel, then the prostitution, that is earning, commercial earning by the sexual exploitation. It's not sexual exploitation, giving a body willingly, right? So it is that becomes the power of the person can be arrested. Now the procedure, that means it can be searched. Search operations can be made under section 15, where the special police officer can search suspected premises. So whenever any suspicion comes, then he can visit that, he can go there, and without the warrant, under certain conditions, with 2 respectable inhabitants as witness. He cannot go alone there. He cannot go alone there, but he can, with 2 respectable inhabitants as the witnesses, he can inspect the premises. That is what section 15 says. Then initial care, that means after that the victims, if they are the rescued victims, so if they found that these are the victims where they were used for this purpose, then they require immediate medical attention. So they require the medical attention, and trauma-informed counseling is very important, and the safe shelter. See, these 3 aspects are provided as the rescue operation. So when any women, children, whoever is found from that brothel or from that kind of condition, they need to be immediately taken or given to the medical attention need to be given to them, provided to them. Then the trauma-informed counseling, because they will be traumatized. They are traumatized. So there is a need for counseling. And there comes the importance of the counselors and the safe shelter. So they should be given a safe shelter. So these are the rescue operations and the initial steps that need to be taken care with the appointment of the special police officer. Then what are the protective homes? Protective homes are established under section 21. So what I'm speaking is based on the legislation. It is not like the community measures, the law itself. That's why the peculiar feature, I am again repeating the same, that is, it is a penal provision, of course, but it consists of the prevention as well as the rehabilitation, which you cannot find in many of the laws. It is majorly punitive. It's majorly punitive. That means only punishment they are focusing. But in this legislation, it is both ways. That is, it is preventive measures as well as it is rehabilitating. That means making good the laws type. You know, they are bringing it, the good aspect of it, that is rehabilitation of the victim. So what are the mandate and the functions? Section 21 says for the establishment of the protective homes. So the protective homes are established under section 21. And here the state governments, remember, it is not focusing only on the central government. So the state governments must establish protective homes, either directly or by recognizing voluntary organizations for the reception, care, protection, training, rehabilitation of trafficking victims. So the protective homes are established for what? With the help, directly or indirectly, recognizing the voluntary organizations. The state governments have been entrusted with this power, or we can say that they were told to establish it for what? For the reception, care, protection, training and the rehabilitation of the trafficking victims. Secondly, they call for having a safe shelter. We are just going into the details which I have mentioned in the pointers. So safe shelter, that means secure accommodation. It's not that you have given a secured roof. You need to live, for that you need food. So what it says that secure accommodation, nutritious food. It's not that whatever you can give, please provide them with the nutritious food. Then appropriate clothing, then you should give the appropriate clothing for the victims. The shelter home or the shelter, safe shelter should consist of these aspects of nutritious food, then appropriate clothing for the victims. And this is where the challenge is faced. That is, law is providing for all these aspects. But whether the protective homes that are run are safe or not for the victims. So that is where the challenge comes up. However, we can see that it is provided for having a safe shelter. Then to provide the medical care. Medical care, that means the physical and the psychological healthcare services, including trauma counseling. So medical care, that means the physical, psychological healthcare services, which includes the trauma counseling. Traumatized. These so-called victims are so much traumatized that need counseling to come up from their trauma that they have undergone. They're trusting for a job and then they realize that they have been exploited. They can't go back to their house. They don't know for what purpose. Sometimes the young girls are married away and then they are brought into this brothel and they are sold. So just like they're treated as a commodity. So you imagine the trauma that the minor child might have gone through, or even if it is an elder also that they have gone through. It's a trauma. So for them, that is why it is required to give a medical care under the protective homes. Then education and training. So they need to be given education. So academic education and vocational training for the suitable livelihood. So once they have been rescued from the brothel, and then they have brought to the protective homes, and it should be used and you should give them the education. The state is provided with a duty to provide them with a good education and then the training for the suitable livelihood. So that the skills development programs, they should be made part of it. They should learn certain skills with which they can continue their livelihood. And that is how they will be integrated with the mainstream of the society. Or else they are victims. So once a victim, it is not that always a victims. They should be made part of the society again by giving them the education and the training. The skilled worker also can they become. Then you should give them. So suppose if in extreme cases or many a times if they require the legal support, they should be given legal aid, counseling and assistance with the court proceedings. So they can go further, and for that the legal aid comes for their protection. Now moving further, the detention of victims in the protective homes. So according to section 17, the concept of custody pending enquiry. So if the enquiry is pending, at that time, when they are in the custody, section 17 says that the police must produce victims before the magistrate within 24 hours. So that is what section 17 says. The police must produce the victim before magistrate within 24 hours. Then the magistrate can order detention in protective homes pending enquiry. Then the judicial oversight prevents arbitrary detention. So that means the magistrate can order detention in protective homes pending enquiry. So that means they are detained in the protective homes while the enquiry is going on, because they are caught or they are brought from the brothels or by the special police officers for rescuing. So it is not that whether they have did it or not, but anyway, they should not be treated as the criminals, and should not be treated as if they have done any kind of crime, so that by the time they are in the custody, they should be provided with the proper care. And section 18. So section 18 says about the closure and the removal. It says that the magistrate can order for the closure of the brothel. So that means he can order for the closure of the brothel, and he can direct the removal of victim from the premises if the victim is there, and the victim sent to the protective homes or the place of safety. So all these can be made part under section 17, and 18 deals with the detention of the victims in the protective homes. Then the purpose of the detention. What is the purpose of the detention? Why the people are detained? Why the victims are detained? The main or the primarily they are detained for protection, because imagine they're trafficked and they need protection. If they are not provided with the protection, they may be killed. You don't know, because it's an organized racket. It's not that I told you that it is an organized crime. It's an organized racket. So they are exporting or they're trafficking with the name of, by giving a lot of promises. And if they go public, that who are the persons behind this, it's a kind of racket. So if they go to the public and inform, so they become a threat. So they may be murdered also, right? Because they are only one of a product which are in the market. So if that product become dangerous for their future business, they may detain or they may kill. So that is why the purpose of detention is not a punitive measure. Remember that. The detention is not like a murderer. Okay, but it is for the detention is to protect. They are safe, right? So it is the protection, and this protection also have one more thing in their mind, that is to rehabilitate. Let us rehabilitate, and as a safe space, because it is the space which is safe during the legal proceedings, because the legal proceedings are taking place and it is not a punishment. So human rights, here comes the interface of the human rights. So the so-called prostitutes, they have not, it is not that they have done any crime, but they are detained and in the protective homes because they need the protection, because they need to be rehabilitated, and they are in a space which is safe for them, and during the legal proceedings they are not harmed, and not only during the legal proceedings, after that also. So the detention of the victims in the protective home is not a punishment. Remember that. It is a protection. What is it? Detention of victims is not a punishment, rather it is a protection. Now, let us see the powers of the magistrate. Magistrate are having the powers and inquiry process. What are the procedure that has been mentioned under section 17? So upon the production of the person, so once the person is produced before the magistrate, he will conduct a comprehensive inquiry to determine the appropriate measure for her protection and rehabilitation. So the first step is, once you start the inquiry, is to determine the appropriate measures. So how she will be protected or how she need to be rehabilitated. And what are the factors that are considered, that need to be considered by the magistrate? First is wishes of the victim. What are her wishes? If she's an adult, because for the minor, it's very difficult to know what their wishes is. Wishes of the victim. Then the police and the advisory body reports. Character, health and the mental condition. Sustainability, suitability of returning to the family. So these things are to be looked after. Because suppose if she is sent back to her family, whether the family will accept her, whether she will get a dignified life there, how safe she will be, because you don't know whether the family themselves have sold her. So going back again, she may be again sent back to the brothels. by the family itself. We don't know whether the families protect you or not. So these factors need to be considered by the magistrate. Then what are the possible orders that the magistrate can give? That is the protective home placement, that is for 1 to 3 years. So the protection, that is the home placement. She can be given a home placement for 1 to 3 years. Then if the family was not aware that the daughter, which they thought that doing the job or was sent, has been exploited like this by the so-called traffickers, then if it is the safe haven, again she can be returned to the suitable parents or the guardians. So if it is a minor, then the guardians will come. So it will be, she can be returned. This is the order. So that is the order that is given by the magistrate. Or again, supervision arrangements. Even if they are sent back, there is a need for the supervisor. So supervisory role. Then in case of the minor, special provisions for the minor need to be made. Now the courts can now emphasize. So what the courts can do now, emphasize regular review and time-bound rehabilitation approaches rather than indefinite detention. Remember that one of the objectives of the Act is to rehabilitate the victims into the mainstreams of the society. So when they need to be reintegrated into the society, there is a need for the regular review, and it should be time bound. It's not that is why you can see the protective homes placement is for 1 to 3 years. So within this 1 to 3 years, the case need to be decided. So special courts are also formed, that is for the time bound manner, not with the normal courts, right? So in the time bound manner, the things need to be decided, and instead of the punishment, she need to be rehabilitated. And by and it is not that once you are in a permanent home, that is your protective home, it is a permanent home. It's not a permanent home. It's only a protective home where, look, you are here because of your trauma. Just like we are going to the hospital for when we caught up with any kind of disease to see the doctor, or in case of any health checkup and all. Similarly, now we are reaching the protective homes. She has been brought to the protective homes, but it is not that once she is there, lifetime he or she should be there, or even in case of the minor. So it is for the limited period. So after that, they need to be rehabilitated into the mainstream of the society. So the magistrate has got the power and the inquiry process, and the procedure has been mentioned in section 17. And these are the factors that need to be considered by the magistrate, which I have discussed with you. One is the wishes of the victim in case if he or she is not a minor. Then moving further, how the case can be discharged and how the release procedure takes place. Section 19 deals with the review mechanism. Section 19 provides the structured processes for discharging persons from protective homes once rehabilitation goals are achieved. What is that? Once the rehabilitation goals are achieved, first is filing application. Application for discharge can be filed by the victim if adult, parent or the guardian, or any other person on her behalf. So from the protective home, if they need to be discharged, so NGOs can also be made part of it. So first is application need to be filed. Second is the magistrate will assess. Based on the application that is received, the magistrate will assess if the victim will be saved from re-trafficking. So from the trafficking, now she is moving further to the mainstream of the society. So re-trafficking is the word used. So properly cared, she will be properly cared and has suitable living arrangements. So once she go back, whether she will be having a suitable living or not. So these are the magistrate will assess all these parameters in her favor. Then after that, if satisfied, everything is perfect, then the magistrate will issue the discharge order, sometimes with rehabilitation certificate in certain states. In certain states, a rehabilitation certificate is also issued by the magistrate if he is satisfied the above mentioned aspects has been cleared to his satisfaction. Remember here, it is a subjective satisfaction of the magistrate. There is no objective satisfaction. It is a subjective. So he will look into this, and if he is coming that yes, she will be safe, they are returning back, that is sufficient. Then reintegration support. So after that, it's not that once she has been given the certificate and back, she need to be again follow-up services. So reintegration support, that is a follow-up services provided to ensure successful social and the economic reintegration. So section 19 deals with the review mechanism and section 19 provides for the structural process. What are they? First is the application filing, magistrate assessment, discharge order and reintegration support to the victims of this crime. Now, what is how the trial takes place? What are the trial procedure and what is the role of the special police officer? So remember that in this act, a special police officer is provided. So what is his role and how the trial takes place? And what is the first is the jurisdiction. The jurisdiction and the special police role is offences tried by the magistrate under the CRPC powers and special officers crucial for investigation and the prosecution. Special police officers build cases beyond rescue operation and they will collect the forensic evidence which is very critical. Now, prosecution challenges. What are the challenges the prosecution face? Traumatized victim reluctant to testify. That means always once the jurisdiction comes up and the special police officer is also there, what will happen? The traumatized victims. So because it is not easy, they are traumatized. So they may not testify. They will not give any testimony. So it is very difficult to collect the sufficient evidence. Then cross-border jurisdictional complications. This is where that is the cross-border jurisdictional, that is the cross-border aspect, it will provide for the complications. How the cross-border problem will come? Suppose if she has brought back from other country, the police officer cannot. So it is to bring back that victim from another country becomes very difficult if the racket has been busted. So here the cross-border jurisdiction complications will come. It's a challenge. Allegations of corruption impeding justice, and always we can see that corruption is a deep-rooted evil. So even if there is no corruption, people may allege, or sometimes the corruption may also takes place. The organized persons, they know that whom to give the amount just to, close the case or to make the victim again more victimized or traumatized. So these are all the prosecution challenges. So what we can say that though the courts emphasize, so the court emphasized victim-friendly procedure that protect identity. Identity should not be disclosed and minimize trauma during the testimony. So once he or she come up for the testimony, suppose if she is a prostitute but her children is there and if identity is mentioned, then it is very difficult that the child of that prostitute will get a good school education. He or she will be termed as she's the daughter of a prostitute. So it becomes once that giving a testimony is very difficult aspect, and ensure the speedy trials to prevent the re-victimization. It may result sometimes in the re-victimization. So what we can see is that the trial procedure, the special police officers play a very pivotal role, and the challenges that the prosecution fails in these cases includes traumatized victims are reluctant to testify, then to collect the evidences in order to prove the offense that has been made, that is the prostitution. Then the cross-border jurisdiction compliances, because it's not that without jurisdiction everything will happen. So it is not borderless. Though the crime is borderless, but when it comes to the law, it is not borderless. They have the jurisdiction to be compliant. Then the corruption, that is for the impeding the justice, corruption may also takes place. So next is, is there any provision for appeal and the revision mechanism? We have this appellate jurisdiction. So appellate jurisdiction, that means the orders passed by the magistrate under the provision are appealable to the Court of Session following the Criminal Procedure Code provisions. So they have the appellate jurisdiction is there. Then they have the revisionary powers, that is the High Court possess revisional powers under section 39, 397 read with 409 of CRPC to examine the legality or the proprietary finding sentences or orders. Then we have the victim advocacy programs, that is the appeals and the revisions provide avenues for victims to challenge unfair detention orders or seek justice against perpetrators. Then we have the legal aid access. That's very important. Legal aid access is also there. There is effective legal representation. During the appellate stages is crucial to protect the victim's rights and interest. So what we can say is that the magistrate, with the help of the special officer, will try to rehabilitate the victims of this crime. And even if the punishment is there, it is appealable, and the revision mechanism, revisionary powers are also provided, and the victim can advocate, victim advocacy and the legal aid access to the victims are also provided under the legislation. Now, how the repatriation of victims takes place. Section 20 is the removal provision, and Section 20 enable the return of victims to their places of residence, whether within India or any country if they are a foreign national. So remember that Section 20 has made a framework where it may include a foreign national as well. So they within India or any other country, so the place return to the victims to the place of their residence. So, and what is the legal framework in this regard? First is the magistrate must be satisfied victim will be properly cared for and not re-trafficked before ordering repatriation. This is very important. Again, remember that the legality is, that is, if it is a foreign national also, the magistrate should be satisfied that when the victim is repatriated, that is when it is sent back, it is not that again the same person be coming back. So that is what the magistrate must satisfy victim will be properly cared for and not re-trafficked before ordering repatriation. Then multi-agency, when it becomes a foreign national, there is a need for the multi-agency coordination. Processes require coordination between the police, social welfare departments and international agencies for cross-border cases. So what are the challenges? So it is not that free of any challenges. The challenges that is faced for the repatriation of victims is verifying the identity and the place of origin. Many a times the victims are uneducated and they will not be knowing their origin as well. We may think that how it is possible. It may, because in case of the minor, he may not be knowing where the place is. And so verifying the identity and the place of origin is a big challenge. Then risk of stigma and the family rejection. The family may be reluctant to take back. The family stigma is there. Then ensuring safety during the transit and after return. So it is not, since it is an organized crime, there will be the people who have recruited them. They will be always focusing, they will be giving more surveillance to them than the special police officer. So it is safely returning them back is also a challenge. The navigating complex international procedures. So if it is a foreign victim, to navigate through international procedure is also a challenge. So repatriation of the victims is a huge challenge. It is not so easy, though the provision provides under Section 20 for the same. Now, examination, medical examination and the age determination is also a challenge. That is, medical examination of the documents, sign of abuse, sexual assault, overall health status, serving as the crucial evidence for the prosecution. So, this is very important aspect. Age determination significance, whether it is a minor or not. So, critical for determining if the victim is a minor, because if it is a minor, then triggers the stricter provisions under the Juvenile Justice Act and the POSCO Act. It's very important. So, if the victim is a minor, then the Juvenile Justice Act and the POSCO is a very stringent legislation. POSCO Act and the Juvenile Justice Act is very stringent. So, if the victim happens to be a minor, that is why age determination is very significant. And how the determination takes place? Determination takes place through the medical ossification, school record verification, but it is not that the school verification you can do if it is uneducated or if it's not a school-going child. Birth certificate authentication. So, mostly the medical ossification test will be done, Apart from if it happens to be a school-going child and all the birth certificates, school records will be verified. And with the consent requirements, when it comes to the medical records, examination must be conducted with the informed consent in a dignified manner, preferably by a female medical professionals, because it's a female who are taken. So it's the consent requirements is also taken. And the courts often favor the age claimed by the victim or the lower stage indicated by the medical reports in case of the doubt. So whenever any doubt comes with respect to the age, the court always take whatever the claim that is made by the victim, and it will adhere to the benefit of the victim. Now, what are the challenges that is faced in identification and the rescue? One is the hidden nature. Trafficking operations are covert and deeply entrenched and making it very much difficult to identify. Another aspect is the fear and coercion. Victims often threatened, intimidated or brainwashed, preventing them from seeking help. What are the resource constraints? Limited trained personnel, inadequate funding and insufficient safe homes hamper the rescue efforts. That is the resource constraints. It's not that we have the full resources. Then complex network. Organized, that's why it's the organized crime. Organized criminal network are challenging to dismantle and often have a political protection. That's very important. It's a challenge whenever the political aspect is there. Apart from that, the psychological and the social rehabilitation. Trauma-informed care. Victims often suffer severe psychological trauma which requires specialized long-time support. So for that, de-addiction support is there. Then family reunification is there. Stigma mitigation is there. Peer support network is there, because they will be going through the depression, anxiety and the substance abuse use. So there is a need for bringing them to the mainstream of the society. Their psychological and social rehabilitation also need to be taken care. Apart from that, they need to be provided with the economic rehabilitation and skill development. That means the sustainable livelihood. Then economic support system. That means they should be provided the job placement assistance program, microfinance and the small business loan, financial literacy education, cooperative enterprises for the survivors. Implementation challenges. Said this, what are the implementation? It is limited opportunity in the rural area, market relevance of the skills provided, employer discrimination against survivors, insufficient funding for the comprehensive program. When coming to the skill training program, what are the skill program? Tailoring, garment making, beauty and wellness service, computer literacy, data entry, handicrafts and artisanal products, food preparation, catering. All these can be used as the economic rehabilitation and the skill development. Then we just have a quick look into the Justice Act and the child trafficking victim. We can see the JJ Act, that is the Juvenile Justice Care and the Protection Act, takes the trafficking victim under 18 years and categorizing them as the children in need of care and protection. That is, a child welfare committee is there. Child-friendly procedures are there, because if it is a child, you have to be very sensitive to them. Specialized care facilities are there. Family-based solutions are provided. So the Juvenile Act provides for the child trafficking victims with a special care need where they are not traumatized again. So in summary, what we can say is that the Act is accepted, that is, it is well accepted that the prostitution means the commercial sexual exploitation and traffic of women for several purposes and it is a social evil. And the experience showed that prostitution is not only confined to the females and children, but also covers male. Therefore, it is renamed, that is the Immoral Traffic and Women and Girls Act of 1956 is renamed as Immoral Traffic Prevention Act of 1956, so that it includes men as well. A key feature is that it does not legalize or penalize prostitution itself, but rather targets act like procuring living of earnings from prostitution and brothel keeping. And a comprehensive legislation consisting of 25 sections, establishment of a special court, and rehabilitation of victims to the protective homes and social integration. So this act or this legislation is not only a penal provision, but it is a kind of protective also, the rehabilitation. So protection or prevention as well as the rehabilitation. Prevention plus rehabilitation is what the Immoral Trafficking Act of 1956 signifies. and it is a socio-economic offense as such. However, it is rehabilitating the victims of this crime who are trafficked from or exported from one place to another. With this, I am concluding this lecture, and thank you so much.